Captain Sarava of the Xylan Protectorate stood on the command deck of her cruiser Velon. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewpane, cold and sharp like spears of light. She had crossed them all her life, obeying the same code that every officer of the Concorde lived by. The rules were clear, the laws were older than memory, and one of those laws was never to bond with a human. Humans were recent newcomers to the stars. They were unpredictable, reckless, and dangerously creative. Every race in the Concord had studied them and decided the same thing. They were too unstable to trust fully. The official order was to keep humans at a distance. Trade was allowed. Cooperation was allowed. But bonds, deep trust, friendship, or anything resembling intimacy, were strictly forbidden. Sarava had agreed with that law. At least she had until today. Her sensors officer turned sharply. "Captain, we have detected a vessel at the edge of the barrel rift. Small, human design." Sarava felt her chest tighten. "Status? Power readings are low. Engines offline. Life support failing. They are stranded." The words echoed in the silent chamber. Everyone on the deck knew what the law said. Observe, report, do not interfere. The humans had chosen to wander too close to the rift, a region known for unstable energy currents. The Protectorate had no responsibility to save them. Yet Sarava could not push the order from her mind. She looked at the image of the crippled vessel. It drifted like a broken bird in the void. The humans inside would not last more than a few hours. Her second officer spoke. "Captain, the protocols are clear. If we bring them aboard, we will be questioned by the Concorde. You know what they will say." Sarava closed her eyes for a moment. She did know. The Concorde would remind her that humans had survived on their homeworld through chaos and war. They would say humans did not need saving. They would say humans brought danger wherever they went. But Sarava could not simply watch them die. "Bring the ship into tractor range," she ordered. The deck fell, silent. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the crew obeyed, because her voice carried the weight of command. The Velon's beams locked onto the human vessel, pulling it toward the docking bay. As it came closer, Sarava studied its markings. Erebus, it was called. The name itself felt strange, heavy, almost poetic. Humans had a way of naming things with drama. It reminded her of why the Concorde had feared them in the first place. When the hatch of the human ship finally opened, 4 figures stepped out. Their uniforms were torn, their faces pale from lack of oxygen, but their eyes were sharp. Humans always carried that look of fire, even when they were near death. The leader stepped forward, a tall man with dark hair and a voice that carried strength even through weakness. "I'm Lieutenant Marcus Hale of the Terran Expeditionary Corps. On behalf of my crew, thank you for saving us. Without your intervention, we would have perished." Sarava studied him. His posture was unshaken, his tone steady. Most beings who had nearly suffocated would be on the ground begging for air. But he stood as if he had chosen to survive, as if sheer will had carried him through. Something in her chest shifted. "You should not be here," she said finally. "This region is restricted by Concord law." "We know," Marcus admitted, his expression tight. "But our navigation was corrupted by the rift's energy fields. We lost control." Her officers whispered among themselves, uneasy. One muttered, "They always have excuses." Another said, "Humans never admit fault." Marcus heard them but did not respond. Instead, he looked directly at Sarava, his gaze unflinching. "Captain, if it matters, we are in your debt. Whatever rules say, your choice gave us another chance to live." The words struck her harder than she expected. Gratitude from humans was dangerous. It created threads of connection, threads the Concorde forbade. She straightened. "You will remain on this vessel until your ship can be repaired. You will follow Protectorate law while under my command. Is that understood?" Marcus nodded. "Understood, Captain." As the humans were escorted to the medical bay, Sarava lingered behind. She knew what her crew was thinking. She had already broken the protocol. The Concorde would see her decision as weakness. but when she remembered Marcus's steady eyes, she felt no regret. Later, when she walked through the corridor outside the medical chamber, she paused to glance inside. The humans were speaking softly among themselves. One of Sarava's medics, a young Xylan, struggled to understand their jokes. Humans laughed often, even when injured. The sound carried a strange energy that filled the sterile chamber with warmth. Sarava realized then why the Conquered feared humans. It was not their technology. It was not even their violence. It was this ability to connect, to ignite feeling where none should exist. For the first time in years, she felt uncertain about her loyalty to the law. That night, in her private quarters, she recorded the day's events in her log. Her voice was calm, but her thoughts churned. Protocol demands distance, but I chose otherwise. I cannot yet explain why. Perhaps it was duty, perhaps mercy, or perhaps something else. Her gaze drifted back to the stars. The Conquered called. Humans unpredictable, but maybe unpredictability was exactly what the galaxy needed. Unseen to her, the threads of change had already begun to weave. The humans on her ship were more than just survivors. They were a spark, one that could either burn her career to ash or light a fire across the stars. And in her heart, Sarava suspected it was already too late to put the spark out. The next morning, on the Veilun, Captain Sarava began her daily inspection of the medical wing. The hum of machinery echoed along the clean corridors, mixed with the faint sound of human voices. She walked with steady steps, her hands behind her back, her expression calm. But inside, her mind was restless. She had broken protocol once by bringing the humans aboard. Now she had to make sure their presence did not shatter the fragile discipline of her crew. When the doors slid open, she found the humans awake and alert. Lieutenant Marcus Hale sat on the edge of a medical bed, his uniform patched roughly by one of his crew. Despite his pale skin and tired eyes, he looked ready to stand at attention. His companions, 3 younger officers, were eating nutrient rations with clear hunger. Sarava's chief medic gave a quiet report. Their injuries are minor: dehydration, oxygen deprivation, but nothing beyond repair. They are strong, Captain. Humans recover quickly. Marcus gave a faint smile. We've had practice. Our species nearly destroyed itself long before we left Earth. Surviving in space feels almost easy compared to that. The medic gave him a puzzled look, but Sarava did not miss the meaning behind his words. Humans had come from struggle, yet, instead of breaking, they had adapted. She stepped closer. Lieutenant Hale, your ship is severely damaged. Repairs will take days. In that time, you and your crew will remain under my authority. You will respect Protectorate law. Marcus rose to his feet, standing tall though his body swayed slightly from exhaustion. Understood, Captain. We'll follow your rules. We are grateful for your help. One of his crew, a young woman with short blonde hair, added, If there's anything we can do to repay you, we will. Her words made some of the Xylan guards shift uncomfortably. Gratitude sounded harmless, but everyone in the room understood its danger. Gratitude was a bridge. Gratitude could lead to trust, and trust was what the Concord feared most. Sarava said nothing about it. Instead, she ordered, Once you are cleared by the medical staff, you will be escorted to engineering. Your knowledge of your own ship will be useful. My crew will not repair human systems without guidance. Marcus inclined his head. Then we'll work with them. We want the Erebus spaceworthy as much as you do. Shared work hours later, the humans walked into the engineering bay, shadowed by Xylan guards. The place was filled with the metallic tang of coolant, the hiss of plasma conduits, and the glow of holographic displays. Xylan engineers paused at their stations, watching the newcomers with suspicion. Sarava stood at the balcony above, observing. Marcus immediately approached the main console. This interface, it's similar, but your calibration is different. If we sync the output regulators to match Terran design, we can stabilize the core faster. The Xylan chief engineer, a stern officer named Varric, frowned. You cannot simply merge 2 systems. Our standards are precise. Sometimes too precise, Marcus replied calmly. Human systems are flexible. If you allow a little tolerance, they can keep working even under stress. That night, Sarava found Marcus standing alone in the observation deck, staring at the rift. The swirling clouds of energy glowed blue and violet, shifting like a living storm. "You should not be here without escort," she said. Marcus turned, slightly, his expression calm. "Didn't mean to break another rule, Captain. I just needed air that doesn't smell like engine grease." He leaned against the glass, eyes fixed on the storm. "Do you know what this reminds me of? The oceans back on Earth. Unpredictable, violent, beautiful. Our ancestors learned to ride, them in wooden ships. Half the time they drowned. The other half they discovered new worlds." Sarava studied him. His words carried images she had never seen, yet they stirred something inside her. Oceans, storms, discovery. Humans lived with chaos, and instead of fleeing, they embraced it. "You see survival," she said softly, "where others see only destruction." Marcus glanced at her. "Maybe that's why the conquered fears us. Not because we're violent, because we don't give up." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the storm beyond the glass. Then Sarava turned sharply. "Return to your quarters, Lieutenant. Tomorrow will test us again." Marcus gave a slight nod. "As you command, Captain." Whispers of rebellion. The next day, Sarava received a private report from her intelligence officer. "Captain, some of the crew are speaking too freely. They share human words. They defend the humans when others criticize. This could be reported to Concord Command if overheard." Sarava dismissed the officer, but her heart pounded. She could already see the threads weaving tighter. Her crew no longer saw humans as outsiders. They were beginning to see them as comrades. Later she overheard two engineers arguing in the mess hall. "The humans risked their lives fixing our conduits. They are not weak," one said. "Doesn't matter," the other replied. "The Conquered says they cannot be trusted. If the captain protects them too long, we all suffer." Sarava left before they noticed her. She knew both voices carried truth. Protecting the humans risked everything, but surrendering them would crush the fragile bond growing between her crew and their guests. Evidence and doubt. That evening, Sarava opened her private log again. Her words were quiet, almost hesitant. "Should document their influence as evidence of danger. Already my crew repeats their words, laughs at their humor, questions our laws. This is proof the Concord is right. Proof that humans must remain apart. And yet, my heart refuses this conclusion." "Why?" She paused, staring at the recording. Crystal. She could not admit the full truth, even to herself, that she admired Marcus's fire, his refusal to yield, his strange ability to turn despair into hope. Closing the log, she rose quickly, as if standing might shake the thought away. But it did not. The rift's test as the repairs neared completion. The Erebus's systems flickered back to life. Energy surged, lights glowed, and for a moment hope filled the hangar. But then the rift itself stirred. A wave of unstable energy rippled outward, striking both ships. Alarms screamed. Lights dimmed. Gravity fields trembled. Sarava grabbed the comm. "All hands, brace for impact." Marcus and his crew ran to help the engineers stabilize the shields. Together they fought the storm, their voices cutting through the chaos. Marcus shouted orders not only to his humans but to Xylan officers as well, and they obeyed without hesitation. For 2 long hours the storm raged, but through combined effort, the shields held. When the wave finally passed, silence filled the ship. Exhausted, bruised, but alive. And in that silence, Sarava realized something terrifying. Her crew had not looked to her alone for command. They had looked to Marcus too. The shadow of Concord that night, another message arrived from the Conquered. This one sharper, colder. Reports suggest Protectorate interference with human vessels. We remind you, protocol forbids deep contact. Any violation will result in tribunal. Sarava's hands trembled as she closed the transmission. She could not deny it anymore. Her decision to save the humans had set her on a path that could end her career. perhaps even her life. And yet, as she remembered her crew fighting beside Marcus, she knew the truth. The bond was already formed. The conquered could not stop it. The balloon floated steady beyond the rift, its hull patched and glowing from hard work. The humans and Xylan crew had grown used to moving side by side. The sound of mixed voices in the corridors was no longer strange. It had become ordinary. But Sarava knew this peace could not last. The warning from the Concord still burned in her mind. They were watching. They suspected. And soon, they would act. The summons her fears proved true when the next transmission arrived. The sharp crest of the Concord seal filled the command deck, followed by the cold voice of a counselor. Captain Sarava of the Protectorate cruiser Veilun, you are ordered to report to the tribunal ship Judicator. We have confirmation of human presence aboard your vessel. You will surrender them at once. Failure to comply will be considered treason against the conquered. The message ended, leaving silence heavy in the chamber. Her officers looked to her, their eyes filled with unease. Some clenched their fists, others bowed their heads, unable to meet her gaze. Marcus stood at the edge of the deck, having been summoned to hear the message himself. His expression was unreadable. Sarava drew a slow breath. Prepare the ship. The Judicator is already near. We have no choice but to face them. The cruise division. In the hours that followed, whispers spread through the ship. Some crew members argued loudly that the humans must be surrendered. The conquered is law, they said. We are nothing without it. Others, younger and more shaken by recent battles, whispered back, the humans fought with us, they saved our lives. Abandoning them is dishonor. The ship, once unified, now carried two voices, and Sarava stood between them. She walked the halls, hearing both sides. Her heart grew heavier with every step. She had never before questioned her duty, but now every order she considered carried the weight of betrayal. Betrayal of her people or betrayal of her crew's trust. Marcus's choice. That night, Marcus entered her private chamber without hesitation. His face was calm, though his eyes carried the weight of decision. Captain, he said, I heard the message. I know what the Concord will do if you resist. They'll strip your command, maybe worse. I won't let my crew cost you that. She frowned. What are you saying? Marcus stepped closer, his voice firm. When the Judicator arrives, hand us over. Say you found us, rescued us, and followed protocol. Let them blame us for entering forbidden space. At least then your name will stay clean. Sarava stared at him. His words struck her like a blade, sharp, direct, and cutting at the core of her struggle. He was ready to sacrifice his freedom to protect her. You would accept captivity? She asked softly. If it keeps my crew alive, yes, Marcus said. If it keeps you safe, even better. For a moment, Sarava felt her composure crack. She turned away, gripping the edge of her desk until her knuckles whitened. You speak as if my honor is more important than justice, she whispered. Marcus shook his head. I speak as if your life matters more than rules written by people who've never faced death the way we have. Rules can change, people can't. His words hung in the air, dangerous and powerful. The Judicator arrives. The tribunal ship emerged from hyperspace like a giant blade, dark and gleaming with authority. Its size dwarfed the Veilun. Every weapon port glowed faintly, a reminder that defiance could mean destruction. The Council's voice returned. Protectorate vessel, prepare to transfer custody of the human crew immediately. Sarava stood tall on the deck, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Her officers awaited, her command, their faces tense. Some wanted her to obey. Others silently hoped she would not. She opened the comm. This is Captain Sarava of the Veilun. The humans are alive and under my protection. They have aided in saving my crew and my vessel. To surrender them would be dishonor. Gasps spread across her deck. The words had been spoken. The line had been crossed. The Concord's reply was instant. Captain Sarava, you admit to direct violation of protocol. You will stand trial for treason. This is your final chance. Surrender them now. Unity and defiance before Sarava could answer, Marcus stepped forward. Counselors, he said firmly, the humans are guilty only of survival. Punish us if you must, but don't hold this captain responsible. She showed mercy when your law demanded silence. If mercy is treason, then perhaps the law itself is broken. The council's voice turned cold. You dare challenge the conquered? I dare to speak truth, Marcus replied. The deck fell silent. Many Xylan officers looked at Marcus with awe. A human standing unflinching before the most feared power in the galaxy. It was an image that would not fade quickly. Sarava felt the weight of the moment. She knew what she had to do. Her voice rang clear. In engineering, the collaboration deepened. Marcus often stood shoulder to shoulder with Varric, the once skeptical chief engineer. Together they argued fiercely, sometimes even shouting, but the results spoke for themselves. Systems that had been unstable for weeks now hummed with smooth efficiency. Your people, Marcus said one day, wiping coolant from his hands, design everything to be perfect, flawless, but the universe isn't flawless. Sometimes you need machines that bend a little without breaking. Varric grumbled. And sometimes bending too much means failure. Marcus grinned. Maybe. But we humans bend all the time, and we're still here. The younger engineers chuckled, their eyes shining with a mix of amusement and admiration. They were beginning to see humans not as dangerous outsiders, but as partners. Sarava watched from above, her arms crossed. She could see the danger in every word Marcus spoke. The conquered had forbidden bonds exactly because of this. Humans inspired loyalty, even when logic said otherwise. The crew's questions, later that evening, as Sarava walked the corridor, 2 of her junior officers approached her cautiously. Captain, one of them said, may we ask something? About the humans? Sarava stopped. Ask. They seem different, not like the reports from the Concord archives. They are reckless, yes, but they are also kind. They share food with us. They laugh when nothing is funny. And somehow, it makes the work easier. Why are they called dangerous? The question unsettled her more than she admitted. Because kindness can be as dangerous as a weapon, she replied. It weakens discipline. It makes you hesitate when hesitation can kill. The officers bowed their heads, but their eyes still glowed with curiosity. Sarava walked on, her mind heavy. Marcus and the stars. The humans remain under my protection. If that is treason, then I accept the charge. The first spark, the judicator, did not open fire. Instead, it pulled back, its shadow still looming, but its weapons quiet. The council's voice returned, icy and controlled. Very well. You have chosen defiance. Return to Protectorate space immediately. Your fate will be decided at tribunal. Do not resist, or you and your entire crew will be destroyed. The transmission ended. On the deck of the Veloon, tension gave way to a strange energy. Some crew members trembled with fear. Others looked at Sarava with new respect. For the first time, they saw her not just as a captain, but as a leader willing to risk everything for truth. Marcus placed a hand over his chest in a human gesture of respect. Whatever comes, Captain, you won't face it alone. Sarava met his eyes, and for once she allowed herself a faint smile. Then let the tribunal see what humans and Xylan together can endure. Shadows of the future. That night, as the ship began its slow journey back toward Protectorate space, Sarava opened her private log. Today I chose loyalty over law. The conquered will not forgive. But I could not betray those who trusted me. The humans are not our weakness. They are our mirror. They remind us that survival means more than obedience, and I fear this spark of defiance will not end here. It has already begun to spread. She closed the log and looked at the stars. Somewhere ahead lay judgment, perhaps punishment, perhaps worse. But inside her, the fire no law could extinguish now burned strong. The Veloon entered Protectorate, space under escort. 2 conquered frigates flanked the cruiser like silent hunters, their weapons charged but still. The tribunal ship Judicator waited at the center of the system, a black giant against the stars. Its presence made even the bravest officers lower their eyes. On the bridge, Captain Sarava stood with her crew behind her. Marcus and his humans were also there, though every regulation said they should be locked away. No one spoke. All waited for the tribunal's judgment. The tribunal, the Veilun, docked. Armed guards led Sarava and Marcus into the tribunal chamber. The hall was vast, its walls lined with alien banners, its air heavy with the weight of authority. At the far end sat the conquered council, 6 figures representing 6 ancient species. The lead counselor, a being of stone-like flesh, spoke in a voice that rumbled like thunder. Captain Sarava, you stand accused of violating protocol. You gave shelter to humans, allowed them into your crew, and defied direct orders. Do you deny these charges? Sarava raised her head. Her voice was calm. I do not deny them. I chose to save lives. I chose to honor the bonds of those who stood beside me. If that is treason, then I stand guilty. A murmur ran through the chamber. The counselor's eyes narrowed. And what of you, human Marcus Hale? What say you? Marcus stepped forward, unarmed but unafraid. I say your law is flawed. It fears humanity because you cannot control us. But control is not strength. Strength is trust. Captain Sarava did what was right, not what was safe. If you punish her for that, then you prove your law serves fear, not justice. The council erupted in angry whispers. Some slammed their hands on the table, calling for silence. Others studied, Marcus with unsettling interest. Testimony of the Crew One counselor gestured sharply. Bring witnesses. Several of Sarava's officers were summoned. Some were loyal to law, others to their captain. The division was clear. One senior officer bowed deeply. Captain Sarava broke protocol. She endangered us all. For the sake of law, she must be punished. But then a younger engineer spoke. His voice shook, but his words burned. The humans saved us. Without them, half this crew would be dead. They are not our weakness. They are our strength. One by one, more voices rose, some against Sarava, some in her defense. The chamber filled with clashing testimony until finally the council called for silence. The lead counselor turned his gaze on Sarava. Your own crew is divided. Your actions have seeded doubt. That is proof enough of the danger of humans. Sarava's heart pounded, but she stood tall. No, it is proof of their power. Humans awaken thought. They stir questions, and questions lead to growth. If you fear growth, then perhaps the conquered is weaker than you claim. The council's judgment, the council fell into private debate. Minutes dragged into hours. Guards kept watch, but even they shifted uneasily, sensing the weight of the moment. Finally, the lead counselor rose. His voice filled the hall. Captain Sarava, the tribunal finds you guilty of breaking protocol. By law, the punishment is removal of command and exile. However, he paused, his stone face unreadable. The council cannot ignore the results. Your ship survived where others would have perished. Your crew stands stronger than before, and even here in this chamber, the human speaks and sways hearts. The silence that followed was heavy. The counselor continued. Therefore, we issue new decree. Protocol regarding humans will be reviewed. Until then, no sentence shall be carried out. You and your crew are free to return to duty, under close observation. Gasps filled the hall. It was not victory, but it was not defeat. It was something new, a crack in the wall of law. A risky freedom back aboard the Vela, and the crew gathered in the hangar. Many cheered when Sarava returned. Others still looked uncertain, but none could deny what had happened. The conquered had bent its own law, even if only slightly. Marcus approached her quietly. That was more than I expected. I thought they'd lock us away forever. Sarava gave a faint smile. So did I. Perhaps the conquered has more cracks than we believed. He nodded. Or maybe they're just beginning to see what humans can offer. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Offer or unleash? Marcus laughed softly. Depends on how much they fear us. Seeds of change. That night, Sarava stood once again at the observation deck. The stars stretched endless before her, but tonight they looked different. The laws of the galaxy had not changed, not yet, but something had shifted. The tide was moving. She spoke quietly to her log. The conquered called me traitor, yet they could not punish me. They feared what they saw. Humans, dangerous, reckless, stubborn, are also a force they cannot ignore. For the first time in centuries, the law has bent. And once it bends, it may never return. Marcus entered, silent until he stood beside her. You think this is the beginning of something bigger? Sarava looked at him. Yes. Today they feared one captain and a handful of humans. Tomorrow, they may face fleets bound together by the same spark. They both turned to the stars. Neither spoke further. Words were not needed. The future was uncertain, but the path had already begun. A protocol broken in. The quiet of the night, the ship moved through space, carrying with it a bond no law could erase. Against protocol, against fear, against centuries of caution, one captain had chosen loyalty over law, and in doing so she had planted a seed in the heart of the conquered, a seed that might one day grow into a fire across the stars. Varric scoffed. Tolerance is weakness. Weakness leads to collapse. Marcus only smiled faintly. Or it leads to survival. Depends on how you look at it. Sarava noticed several younger engineers listening closely. Marcus's words carried a strange weight. He was not arguing for dominance. He was simply presenting another way of thinking. Together, the humans and Xylan began repairing the damaged systems. Marcus crawled into narrow maintenance shafts, guiding his crew as they worked, with alien tools. At first, the Xylan engineers resisted, muttering that humans were reckless. But when one of the conduits overloaded unexpectedly, Marcus reacted instantly. He tore off his jacket, wrapped it around the sparking core, and forced it shut before the explosion spread. The chamber filled with smoke, the alarms blared. Yet Marcus emerged coughing. His hands burned, but his face calm. You'd lose half this deck if I hadn't done that, he said simply. The Xylan engineers stared at him in silence. They had seen officers panic in smaller emergencies. But this human had reacted without hesitation, as if chaos was his natural environment. For the first time, Varric gave him a nod of respect. Perhaps tolerance is not always weakness. Changing tides over the next days, Sarava noticed changes in her crew. The younger officers began picking up human expressions, short phrases of humor that made no sense in Xylan language, but still made them laugh. Even the most disciplined engineers found themselves smiling when Marcus or his crew cracked a joke after hours of exhausting work. At night, Sarava recorded her thoughts in her log. Humans are unsettling. They bend rules without breaking them. They create comfort in places of despair. And their courage is not show. It is instinct. My crew is beginning to admire them. I must remain cautious. But even she could not deny the truth. She too felt the effect of Marcus's presence. He spoke with confidence, but not arrogance. He treated her not as an alien authority, but as a leader he could respect, and that respect was genuine. One evening, while reviewing repair progress, Marcus approached her. Captain Sarava, he said, I want to thank you again, not just for saving us, but for letting us work beside your people. Some leaders would have locked us in a cell. Sarava kept her voice calm. Perhaps that would have been safer. Maybe, Marcus admitted. But safety isn't always the same as strength. You gave us a chance to prove ourselves. That matters. For a moment, Sarava met his eyes. His gaze was steady, filled with a kind of fire she could not name. She broke the contact first, turning back to her display. You should rest, Lieutenant, she said. Tomorrow will test us further. Marcus gave a slight smile. I'll be ready. A silent warning. That night, Sarava received a message from Concord Command. The transmission was brief but heavy with authority. Report on unusual activity near the rift. We have heard whispers of human presence. Confirm immediately. Remember protocol. Sarava's chest tightened as she read the words. Her choice to save the humans had not gone unnoticed. The Conquered was watching. If they discovered she was not only sheltering the humans, but allowing them to work side by side with her crew, punishment would be swift. Yet when she thought of Marcus, of the laughter in her engineering bay, of the spark that seemed to grow brighter every day, she could not bring herself to regret. The law demanded distance, but humans had already crossed it, and she feared it was already too late to go back. The Valen drifted quietly near the edge of the rift, its hull glowing faintly from repair work. Inside, the atmosphere of the ship had shifted. Where silence and strict order once ruled, now there were small echoes of human voices, laughter, and unfamiliar phrases spreading among the crew. Captain Sarava noticed it most during inspections. A Xylan officer who once never spoke during duty now used human words like almost there or hold on. Another began humming a tune Marcus's crew had taught them. Though the melody was rough in the alien tongue, none of it was dangerous. Yet to Sarava it felt like a tide moving beneath her ship, subtle but powerful. Curiosity in the engineering bay,